Hi, I'm Josh. In this video, I'll be helping you to diagnose draining and motor problems in your dishwasher. Let's start with a dishwasher that isn't draining at all. This is usually caused by a foreign object finding its way into the drain pump and blocking it. A lot of the time, this can be a piece of broken glass. If you've put a glass in your dishwasher and it's shattered, make sure you collect all the pieces out of the dishwasher. Have a look around the filter as well. Make sure you collect any pieces out of there. And if possible, try and establish from the pieces whether you've got a complete glass. Now, if a piece has been washed down into the drain pump, you can usually hear when you first put your dishwasher onto a cycle. After about 5 seconds or so, you'll hear the drain pump making a very low humming sort of noise, and that's usually because the piece of glass is blocking the impeller from turning. Now, if that's the case, you'll obviously need to remove that blockage, and to do that you need to get to the bottom of the dishwasher. So start by turning off the water supply and disconnecting the inlet hose from the back of the dishwasher so you don't damage it. And then you'll need to lay the dishwasher down onto its back, not onto its side. As you do so, be very careful to not trap the drain hose underneath. Now, most dishwashers have a removable base plate. On this one, it's just removed by unscrewing these 4 screws here. However, it's also important to bear in mind that on the other side of the base plate is an anti-flood switch. Now, to fully remove the base plate, I need to disconnect that anti-flood switch. So once I've unscrewed these 4 screws, I'm also going to unscrew the anti-flood switch as well. Now, this is the drain pump here. In order to remove it, there's a screw holding it in place on this side. There may also be another one on yours on the other side of it as well. So we'll need to take those out. Now, before I do that, I just need to pull off these 2 connections. And then once I've taken the screws out, I can twist the drain pump and pull it off. Now, if any debris has found its way into the pump, it'll usually settle in this area around the impeller, so you can just pick that straight out. Just check that the impeller is rotating normally. It is usual for it to rotate in this slightly jerky motion because of how the magnet works, but check that that's okay. Also, very gently check inside the chamber that the pump screws onto. Just make sure there's nothing blocking the pump in there, and once you're happy with that, you can also double check that the pump is working normally just by taking a resistance reading across these terminals here. For a normally functioning pump, you should get a reading of round about 200 ohms. Once you're happy with all of that, you can just pop the pump back on. Now, once you've checked that the drain pump is all okay and the dishwasher still isn't draining, some dishwashers also have a flap that is fitted over the outlet that feeds into the drain hose. Now, this flap opens and closes, but it can get stuck. So if that's happening on your dishwasher, just remove the drain hose from the pump and just check that flap for any debris that might be causing it to stick down. Check that the rubber isn't tacky. If it is, you'll either need to clean the flap or replace it. There's also a problem that dishwashers can develop whereby they constantly drain. Now, I'll come back to that in a minute or two. Moving on to noisy pumps, older drain pumps and wash pumps can develop quite a noisy squeal when they get older. Now, this is usually caused by worn bearings, and if that's the case, you'll need to just replace the pump altogether. Wash pumps, generally speaking, are quite reliable, but they can get blocked up, as with a drain pump. Now, if that's the case, obviously remove the blockage from the wash pump. If there isn't any sort of blockage, the capacitor here attached to the motor, that can burn or develop some sort of bulge. Just check around the terminals at the bottom for any burns or bulges that you might be able to find. And once you've checked that the capacitor isn't damaged, it may simply be a case of replacing the wash motor here. Now, before I put the base of the dishwasher back on, it's also worth mentioning the anti-flood switch. If when you first put your dishwasher on, you can hear it constantly draining, it may be because water has filled in the base and it's caused this polystyrene float to lift up and activate the anti-flood switch. Now, if that is the case, you'll obviously need to drain any water out of the base and also establish obviously where the source of flooding is coming from. I'll now put the base back onto the dishwasher and we'll have a look at a dishwasher that's constantly draining. Returning to draining faults, if your dishwasher is constantly draining, and this can be caused in two ways. Firstly, by the flooding in the base, which is triggering the anti-flood switch. And secondly, if the end of the drain hose is set to a level lower than the water level in the dishwasher, it's going to create a siphon effect. Now, the water level usually fills to just below the door seal here. So if you've got the end of the drain hose set to a level that's lower than that, that's going to create the siphon. So to rectify that, you can very simply just reset the drain hose to a level higher than the water level in the appliance. Now, most drain hoses come supplied with this sort of crook attachment, and you can use that when setting the drain hose into the drain to make sure that the hose doesn't go too far down and create the siphon effect.